So first, thanks to you, Dr. Ravi, for your kind invitation. I will do my best, to cover almost all the points in the next 10 minutes. First, I should think that my audience is supreme for me, and I should resolve that I will do everything to make them comfortable, and I'll give my best today. Although I've given several seminars and presentations, but I've not given many webinars. So what I will be speaking in the next 10 minutes is based all on my observations and my suggestions. First, it is setting up your place for a webinar in terms of lighting, sound, disturbances, and camera. First, lighting should be from the front, certainly not from the rear. Now, your face should be lit, it should be illuminated. Second, disturbances like extraneous sound and background. There can be extraneous sounds like, traffic or people at home making noise or singing or talking. So please make sure that these are avoided. The background should be simple and it should not distract the attention of the audience. Many people think it is a good idea to show your trophies, books and all that in the background, but that's not a good idea. Then the camera of your system. The height of the camera should be such that your camera should be looking at you horizontally. So you can take the help of some books and boxes to adjust the height of your camera. Then the angle of the camera. The camera should be looking at you in a horizontal way, not from below. If it is looking at you from below, it'll be something like your voter ID photo. And I look like a ghost in my voter ID, so I don't use it anyway. The distance between you and the camera should be appropriate, adjusted properly, such that you're not very close to the camera, not very far away. The next aspect is the sound, which is the most important in any webinar. Most people leave a webinar when they cannot hear you. So best is to keep the camera, your system, as close as possible so that you can be audible to the people. And before you start a webinar, check with somebody whether you're audible or not. That's very, very important. I think I did that this evening. Good idea to keep the cell phone away or keep it in the silent mode. Your battery should be fully charged, have an internet backup, and the speaker must be presentable in terms of clothes and in terms of hair. Also, we must familiarize ourselves with the webinar software, whether it's Jitsi or Zoom, Google Meet or whatever. So one should know how to quickly switch over to share presentation, making the slide full screen, and the use of cursor, etc. When you're giving a webinar, that should not be your trial ground. Best is to give a mock webinar and ask your peers to give a feedback on how the webinar was in terms of sound, your appearance, how your presentation was, which would always help. And when you start your webinar, okay, somebody introduces you to the audience. Be courteous to thank the person who introduced you to the audience. Then address the audience. After all, you're talking to people, right? And next, spell out the title of your webinar, which is very important. Next, give a framework of your presentation so people will know what is coming after what. So they will follow your webinar properly. Never ever read from a paper or read from your screen. Always speak to your audience. When you speak, you can appeal to them. You can make eye contact. When I can make camera contact, not eye contact. And you can connect with your audience very well when you speak rather than when you read. Reading can be very, very boring. Dr. M.V.N. Murthy, late M.V.N. Murthy, he was with GSI. His suggestion was speak slow and with many pauses, because he said when you speak, people have to listen to you and then assimilate what you said. So if you speak very fast without any pauses, they can only do one at a time. So speak slowly and pause in between. Repeat important points so that you are hammering upon these points. Voice modulation is very important. Monotonous voice can be boring, and that's the best recipe to put somebody to sleep. So there should be bass and crescendo in your voice. And it's a good idea to intersperse your talk with friends or ladies and gentlemen so that, people will think that you're actually talking to them and not to the tables and chairs around. And at the very end, summarize and give a take-home message, because people may or may not have heard and understood you completely. So whatever you summarize at the very end, and this take-home message will remain with them for many years to come. And when the time is up, please stop. Don't eat into somebody else's time. And also thank the audience for putting up with your presentation, for their time and attention. And in case you are presenting figures, please explain what the figure is all about and bring out the salient features of the figure, not all the sundry details. There are a few general things that I wanted to mention. Gesticulations, I do not know whether somebody should really do these gesticulations or not. Then about jokes, some people talk about, narrate jokes, and they should be appropriate and not, inappropriate jokes. Coming to the question answer session, it is good to listen to the question fully and then start answering. Many times what happens is people are so anxious and eager to answer the question that they stop listening to the question. And don't bluff, if you don't have an answer. Confess that you don't know, or you can check it up and let you know later. When you confess your ignorance, people will respect you. Humor is also important. Some people say it's a good question. You know the meaning? The meaning is whatever answer I give you, you've got to accept that. So those are a few things that, some people can do in order to be humorous, but it should be contextual and pertinent to the point. I guess these are the few things that I could jot down in the past few hours after Dr. Ravi asked me to give this short presentation on how to give a webinar. Also, a couple of other things. One is, please ask your webinar organizer to incorporate both the slide and you making the presentation in the final video, because that way people can watch you talking and also the slide that you presented. Connecting with the audience is possible only when they look at you, when they look at your lip movements. It's not that somebody is blind or deaf, but synchronizing what you hear with the lip movements helps a lot. So I usually do this. There's a nice video on how to give a webinar. In fact, I posted this on our WhatsApp group. I don't mind doing it again. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for your time and attention. And thanks once again to Dr. Ravi Garu for his gracious invitation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Shankar. and our Professor Dheeraj Mohan Banerjee, sir, is there.
It is good that we are assembling today after exactly 1 year. We started our program on 21st of July in 2019 with a seminar at Delhi. So there is a uh, good effort by all of us that we are meeting again after 1 year, and we are able to recapitulate whatever we have done in last few months. Some of the very good webinars which we have done, Professor Bhargava's, then Arun Aluwalia, then there's so many others, Ranawat and other people. So I think we will have today a view of all of them, and everybody will get a chance to speak for a few minutes. Yeah. Uh, I think the we have been they have been told that they are getting 10, each one of them are getting 10 minutes, and let's see how it progresses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Dheeraj Mohan Banerjee, sir. I'm going to start a presentation. I'm a proxy for a big man. I can never fit into the shoes. I will tumble. These are slides, are a presentation sent to me by Dr. Bhargava. He has really done a lot of work within a very short time. Let's see it. The slides speak for themselves. Dr. Bhargava didn't have time to actually record audio, which I stitched with his slides earlier. So here we go. I hope Dr. Bhargava is seeing us. So this is his first slide, a journey to the Pin Valley from Manali. I'm just reading out because it is recorded and there should be some audio. The Pin Valley is the most important sector of Spiti Valley. Rocks from Precambrian to Cretaceous are exposed, rightly known as the Museum of Indian Geology. There is a lot of text. Yeah, I'll go to the next slide. He is talking about the tours. Actually, this particular brainstorming, we have done it so that we can convert our GeoHeritage presentations to doable tours. If you remember, right from Dr. Sudha Vaddadi and Nataraj Vaddadi's presentations, there was a turn in our GeoHeritage presentations, and times and bus trips and distances, lunch and dinner and overnight stays were discussed. So Dr. Bhargava writes about there are two possible routes, Chandigarh, Rampur, Kalpa, Tabo, for Pin Valley. And we can, on the fourth day of the Pin section, we can halt at Math. Chandigarh, Manali is the second one. On the second day, drive to Rohtang Pass and then Konjam Pass and see the Middle Cambrian and Lower Ordovician successions. We halted Mutt or MUD, Mud, and return to Mud Manali Chandigarh route. So you can take a flight from Chandigarh or even from Kullu. So the places of halt, he has extensively written it. Rampur, Kalpa, Tabo. They have hotels, so there is no problem about washrooms, I believe. So prior information, they can book for us. Total number of night halts, they are Rampur 1, Kalpa, Tabo and Math 4th. So same number of halts, Manali 3 nights, Khaza 1 night and Math 1 night. So this is about the GeoTour is expressing. Then in old days, when there were no roads, We used to start at the crack of dawn so as to reach Rohtang Pass, which used to become very windy by 8 a.m. I worked in Sikkim myself. I know that the importance of waking up at 4 o'clock and going by the first break of dawn. At Marthi, one could see an overturned syncline, Permian and early Jurassic rocks of Tandy Group over Precambrians. Rohtang Pass, 13,500 feet. Some concern for high altitude sickness. People must be prepared and acclimatized. This is my own extempore. It is the gateway to Lahul Spiti. Precambrian rocks are exposed here. Between Rohtang and Kunjam Pass, you see forest of birch trees, birchwood, a very, very important foliage here. Next is the Kunjam Pass at 15,000 feet. For me, high altitude starts from 10,000 feet. The older you get, the more prone you are to high altitude sickness. I'm just telling that people should be properly acclimatized. As you descend, you view a spectacular Cambrian Ordovician angular unconformity. Beyond Tache Plains, we see a folded sequence of Cambrian and Carboniferous white rock is Muth. Short Laza or Loza, a view of Carboniferous, starfish, trace fossils, Triassic is visible. Fantastic scenery for me. It follows the upper road to Jurassic, Spiti Shale, Cretaceous, Guimal, and Chikim Formation. They sit in the syncline. Spiti Shale encloses numerous other lithologies. I want to give a disclaimer. I use Linux, so the presentation is slightly different between Microsoft and Linux. Kindly bear with me. Dr. Bhargava's presentation is perfect. It's only because of the platform I use. The remaining drive is through Triassic till Adgudu, where a fault has brought the late Carboniferous Permian conglomerates and late Permian on the left. Beyond the Pin Valley Gate is a thick lacustrine deposit formed due to damming of the and it is slightly beyond Norian Coral Reef. Much of these were discussed on 30th of May during Dr. Bhargava's presentation. No doubt there are perfectly new slides. Very, very interesting. As you cross this section, drive through the spectacularly folded Triassic. There you are. Really spectacular. At Muth village, Muth Lipak is overlain by late Permian and then the Trias along a pronounced disconformity. Along this contact, 96% of marine life became extinct. You can see all those yellow dots trying to show the contact. Further upstream, the Muth is underlined along with disconformity by Ordovician mid-Silurian. You can see the text on the actual slides. Angular unconformity between the Cambrian and Ordovician in the Pin Valley. This slide I remember, 30th May. It is so fresh, fantastic slide. So Professor Bhargava's, so he's trying to make this very wonderful formations, and I will close my presentation Thank you very much. On behalf of Dr. Bhargava, thank you very much. The next presentation, as you are aware, sir.
गुड इवनिंग एवरीबॉडी. आज एनिवर्सरी स्पेशल इंडियन जियो हेरिटेज का, उसके लिए एक छोटी सी प्रेजेंटेशन मैंने बनाई है. ये कसौली जियो हेरिटेज टू जियो टूरिज्म, कसौली इंडियन जियो पार्क एज अ केस स्टडी. तो जियो हेरिटेज and geotourism go hand in hand. When rocks are your companion, you are never alone. Every rock has a story to tell, and geoheritage bridges the gap, and geoparks educate the tourist. This is a small starting I have made. And Kasoli Geopark are very important because Kasoli Hills, our favorite tourist destination again, is sandwiched between Shimla and Chandigarh. Geologically, fossils in the last 30 years have revealed very interesting clues for the understanding the timing of evolution of Himalayas and the angiosperms and also mammals. We have found archaeologically, it represents connection. The foothills of Kasoli represents connection between Saraswati, because Ghaggar originates from here. And we have this famous monkey point, which has the Ramayana connection. Historically, we have Gorkha forts. They are 1,000 years or more, and the establishment of British cantonment.
You change your slide. It's not changing.
Huh?
Your slides are not changing. It is there static.
No, it's okay. It will change because I never changed it, you know.
Yeah.
So basically, to understand this entire concept of Geopark, Kasoli Geopark as totality, the entire itinerary from Chandigarh can be covered in 2 days. So from Chandigarh to Kasoli, 1 day, and Kasoli to Solan, and seeing that entire thing, and then coming back in to Chandigarh, another thing. So in 2 days, we can cover the entire sequence. So in day 1, what do we expect? We expect a journey from Harappan civilization, Harappan and Saraswati civilization, to when we move across, we understand the closure of Tethys and the evolution of Himalayas based on all the fossils which we get, and the beautiful section which has been very well exposed due to the four-laning. So everything is quite visible. So this is the panoramic view. Once we are moving from, this is the way when we are going from Chandigarh to Kasoli. So we find these beautiful hills. These are Shivalik hills. And Shivalik formation, we have this main boundary fault here. And then we have Sabatu formation and Shivalik formation in contact. We have Dakshai formation and Kasoli formation, all representing the gradual transition from shallow marine to beach environment, to near coastal environment, then beach environment. And then we have a beautiful sequence, all supported by rocks and all supported by fossils, to show the gradual and the complete transition from shallow marine to continental environment. So day 1, day 2, the Kasoli sandstone architecture and in situ fossils, wherever we have found in some of the localities, we have been able to preserve those fossils for the tourists. And we have then, as we move from the Sabatus, Dakshai and Kasoli formation, we have already, then again repetition of that formation can be seen there, and we have the contact with the marine sands of Karol. So beautiful transition can be seen in entire section when we go. So this is the contact between, this is Sabatu formation, the folded one, representing the closure of the marine environment. And this is the contact Dakshai formation. So we see here the entire section can be observed on the outcrop, and marine sediments and non-marine sediments can be seen here. We have the passage beds, beautifully the green, red, green, red transitions, beautiful outcrops. So the sea was, this represents transgression and regression, regressive phase of the sea. We have found beautiful oysters with fossilized wood representing near coastal environment. Then we have this beach sandstone. So from marine, shallow marine to near coastal to beach environment. So the entire Himalayan sequence, how they have evolved and how the Tethys Sea was closing down can be observed here. The verticality shows a lot of tectonic activity taking place. After the marine beach sandstones, we get these beautiful paleosol horizons, the soil forming process. And once the soil is formed, we expect, these are channel sandstones, beautiful sections where verticality and the tectonic movement started. And that led to these, the beds being vertical. And once the soil formed, the rivers bring in, due to global warming, there was uprooting of the trees, massive trees were there. And now we have identified about more than 35 sites of fossilized tree. For the first time, we have found these organic remains in the fossilized tree. Earlier, whatever reports till date available were all silicified. So this holds a lot of scope for understanding the paleo environmental conditions and the evolution of the angiosperms. This is one of the fossilized tree trunk, and this is how we have been able to preserve with the help of the owner. And thousands and thousands of fossilized leaves and flowers we have been able to collect from these sediments. Once we reach Kasauli, the entire transitions take about 3 to 4 hours to reach Kasauli. We have lunch there, and by the evening we can just go around Kasauli and enjoy Kasauli sandstone architecture. This is Lawrence Kulsnauer. I have not been able to get much of the slides here, but then on a second day, we start a journey again. We can start with the Monkey Point. This is all vertical, almost inclined, vertically inclined sandstones. These are Kasauli sandstones, about 20 million years old. So this is Kasauli Hill basically, and in the foothills of it, the Ghaggar originates, which is a tributary of Saraswati. And on the top of the hill, we have this, this hilltop is basically, when we see from the top, it is representing a foot of a, and it is historically believed कि हनुमान जी यहाँ पे आए थे और जब संजीवनी बूटी लेके जा रहे थे तो this was the place where he took his flight and went ahead. And coincidentally, Monkey Point is also the place today where Air Force Station is based, and it is strategically very important. Then we can visit this site at Kasauli Club. This is on the way to this Monkey Point. This is the place, 1864, and H.B. Medlicott was the first person to discover fossilized leaf from here. So this is the location where he first discovered, and these fossilized leaf were not in situ. They were just, he was just roaming, and then he just found these fossils. So that was the first evidence of Kasauli being fossiliferous, and then the history, then the rest is history. Then we have important a site of these water tanks. These are very important because they are approximately 1900 years old, and they represent the transformation of geohydrology and hydrological studies, geohydrological studies for the first times. What was happening was they, with the Industrial Revolution, the Britishers had this advantage of industrial pumps. So what, before that, the mountain forts, the Gorkha forts which we had, were not having any pumping machinery, because at that time, but our hydrological science was very prominent at that time. We were able to find, our ancestors were able to find groundwater at the top of the hills, and at that hills we were able to locate the forts, and the construction material of that fort and the wells they drilled shows the peak, at how they were able to explore and develop the groundwater resources at the peaks. That was also important part of the study. So, and it can be part of the tour also. And this British, they just, when they came, they were not able to understand, and they just wanted to transport, because the cantonment required more men. So they just collected the water and transported, and that is how Kasauli cantonment came into place. And we are still using this water supply only, though the population has increased and there is shortage of water, but we are still using it. And I was lucky enough to augment this scheme by exploring groundwater here. This place is another also important, because Edward Dyer, in early 19th century, sort of when the Britishers had already come to establish themselves in India, they thought of establishing one of the finest breweries here in India. So the best place they were able to locate was this. Adjacent to this Kasauli water tank localities, they made this Dyer breweries, and then later on it was Dyer Macon Brewery. But what happens was, his son was associated with this Jallianwala Bagh Kand, and then he just left this, and then it became Mohan Macon Brewery. So we have a great history, great archaeology, great geology, great geomorphology, everything intact. And we have beautiful these buildings made of sandstone, 20 million years sandstone, and still intact. Nothing, in spite of the fact that it is considered to be earthquake prone area, but they have withstood the Gorkha forts also, and these buildings also, they have withstood the seismic effects. So that shows the beauty, and how they have beautifully used the sandstone in situ raw material, just cut the hills, use the sandstone, and construct this building. And I was able to locate how they were able to cement that. We have been able to locate those factories. In the ancient times, yes, it was considered to be factories, and there they used to make this cementing material which used to bind this, and this can has the strength of about 1,000 years and more. And today we are talking about cements which are just about 70 years. After that, the building is dangerous. But now we have these beautiful building structures. So this is also very important, and shows how geological. Second day, we can also go and see this beautiful railway tracks. This is a UNESCO heritage site, now declared a UNESCO heritage site. This was built about in the early 19th century, almost more than 120 years. This has about from Kalka to Shimla. So this can be another geo-heritage tour, from Kalka to Shimla. A complete train can be booked, and we can just hip hop and wherever stations, right from Saraswati civilization to the oldest rocks which we find here, the Shimla slates, and the complete entire section of deep marine sediments, closure of Tethys, the Himalayan orogeny, the main boundary fault, the main central thrust, everything can be observed here with this track. So beautiful journey can be made, but that another takes around 1 day extra if you want to make this journey. And this is the museum which I'm constructing, and this is completely made of 20 million years old rocks, the arcs, and I have made this entire 10,000 square feet now. This will house the entire fossil collection which we have, and the complete transition from of the closure of the Tethys Sea and the evolution of Himalayas. Any child coming into this place, when he goes out of this place, will know with evidences how we calculate, how we come to the conclusion that this was marine rock, this is how marine environment was. So it will be a complete section where we will be displaying each and every sequence, whatever I have done, but these will be on the walls, and it will be a very interactive museum. So yes, and this will be on day 2, and after visiting all these places, I have not been able to complete the entire presentation here, but then the Kroll sandstones and the marine, and where we got these stromatolites. So we have this entire range of not only the Tethys, but the marine sequence also, and oldest fossils records of life in this section. 1 hour journey from here, if we have time, we have the glacial valleys also here. The complete valley's thickness is about more than 100 meters, and it is a very good place to study the climate signatures. We have caves in Arki and Kunihar, and then those caves are very good for so the complete package of making this Indian Kasoli Geopark is there. So thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you.
Very nice, very good presentation.
Thank you.
It's very nice.
Thank you very much, sir.
Who is the next speaker?
You see, the next is, so I'm now calling Biani sir. Please make your presentation, sir.
Good evening to everyone. I am talking about the Dehradun Valley. Dehradun Valley has got very heterogeneous geology. That's why it is very interesting, because in this, since I am told to hurry it up, so this is the basic geological map of Dehradun Valley. The white part is the Doon Valley, and to the north of this, we have got Lesser Himalayan Hills, and to the south of this, we have got the Outer Himalayan Hills. And this valley is bounded by 2 faults on left and right side. This is the Yamuna River, which is flowing in Yamuna Tier, and Ganga River is flowing in Ganga Tier. So, and this is one main boundary fault. This is a intracrustal fault, and to the south of this valley, somewhere here, we have got the main frontal thrust. So this valley is bounded between 4 faults, and the valley has got highly deformed rock, particularly in the north, and moderately deformed rock in the south. And from geotourism point of view, I have identified the following places where we can conduct geological tour for the general public, as well as for those who are having geological interest in as a student or as a researchers. So these are the 10 sites which are very, very useful to everyone. The first site is of Sazdhara. This Sazdhara is somewhere here, and it is at the junction of main boundary fault and that is the to the north. We have got here Lesser Himalaya, and here it is the Outer Himalaya. And in fact, it is not main boundary fault. It is the Kroll thrust, which Aden said that this thrust has hided the main boundary fault. If we want to move in this valley further, then we can see limestone topography here. I am not showing this slide because I have shown you the last time all these slides. So I don't think there is a point to repeat them. So this is one location. Here we can see 4 or 5 things. Number 1, first of all, at this place we can see the main boundary fault, which is the crust one. This is the only site where we can see main boundary fault well exposed. Otherwise, at other places like here, or here, the main boundary fault is concealed by the civil constructions which came up after the formation of the Dehradun as a interim capital of the Uttarakhand state. So now very few places are left where we can see the main boundary fault in its natural setting. So this is one. Here we can see almost 50 to 60 meter high section from top of the valley floor to bottom of the riverbed, where crushed Chandpur phyllites are exposed. Moving further slightly towards this direction, we can see here the uplifted caves. There are 3 to 4 sets of uplifted caves here on the one side, and on this side, the second side, we have got the sulfur springs. And this is a very popular site because one can take bath here round the year, because running water is there. River Bandal is flowing in full stream there. So when we move further, again we see at this place 2 kilometers from there gypsum mineralization, and again the crust fault here. And here we can see the Blake chart, which is very important marking of Kroll Formation and Tal Formation's boundary. Now, after this site, where we can spend at least 4 to 5 hours, if we spend leisurely here, then we can move to second site, that is the Robbers Cave and Tapkeshwar Temple. Robbers Cave is also known as Guchupani locally here, and Tapkeshwar Temple is few kilometers downstream of the Robbers Cave, at least 3 kilometers downstream. And these two sites, they are located on the Tamsa River, and the Tamsa River is flowing in a very narrow gauge, which is excellent place to study the upliftment, epiorogenic upliftment in Doon Valley, where one can count at least 10 or 12 evidences of upliftment, because the valley is behaving like a comb structure. Somewhere it gets widened, somewhere it gets narrower. And at the base or on the floor of the valley, particularly in Robbers Cave, we have got hot water springs. That is another attraction. So these two places, Robbers Cave and Tapkeshwar Temple, it may take 3 to 4 hours. And within the Robbers Cave, we have got the waterfall and also one dam. It was trying to build by the British people during their time, but because of the fragile lithology here and not very consolidated gravels, so this dam could not be stable, and it lost in 1 or 2 rain. So, but evidences of that ancient dams are there in the Robbers Cave. Moving further to Rajpur area, we have got the location where main boundary fault once upon a time was exposed at 2 places here. One is the Shansai Ashram area, and second is the Nala. There was another small Nala where the main boundary fault was exposed, but both sides are now concealed by the civil constructions. So it is pointless to go there. But from here, Shansai Ashram, one can walk to the Mussoorie, and again, there is a lot of construction on this road. So most of the places, the geology is now concealed under the pusta or walls or houses and so on. The another important fault is Himalayan frontal fault. It is about 30 kilometers from Dehradun to the south. It is located near Mohand village. Here one can see the vertical escarps of abruptly rising shivalik. These escarps, particularly in Mohand area, they are 5 to 6 feet height or 1 to 2 meter in height, but suddenly hills goes from 400 meter to 800 meters. So here one can see how the contact between the outer Himalaya and Indo-Gangetic plain exists. Such kind of abrupt change, they visible at very few places in the Himalayan region, because many of the places this Himalayan frontal fault is not exposed. So Dehradun is the place where we can see the Himalayan frontal fault, and from Mohand to Dehradun it is 29 kilometer distance. There in between we can see Shivalik, and Shivalik contains plant fossils as well as the coal seams. The coal seams are not very thick, but still one can enjoy how coal occurs in the nature, and the quality of coal is definitely bituminous grade, and but it cannot be mined because of the thin nature of the seams. But coal formation can be seen. However, no animal fossils can be seen here, but plant fossils are in abundance. There may be the impression of plants, may not be exactly fossil, and we have collected many impressions of plants here. They may be 1 million year to 2 million year old. Then another very important area is, of course, not from geotourism point of view for general public, but for the geologist point of view, that is the Precambrian Cambrian boundary or Klorithal boundary. This is the unique place where we can see the contact between the Precambrian and Cambrian rocks, particularly in the phosphorite horizons between Kroll and Tal. The phosphorite horizon contains the minute conodont fossils. These conodont fossils that came up in the lower Cambrian time, and they are well preserved here, and these conodont fossils, particularly they are available in Maldevta area, which is about 14 kilometers from Dehradun. Then also in Durmala area, that is about 30 kilometers from Dehradun. But if you go by the Mussoorie, then it must be about 50 kilometers from Dehradun. Otherwise, straight distance is about 20 kilometers. Or from Maldevta, it is 5 to 6 kilometers if one can climb the hills. So from that point of view, Kroltal boundary is, as I said last time, that the International Stratigraphy Commission visited here and they considered this site as the type area for the Kroltal boundary stratotype, but due to some problems, they could not recommend it this place, but they considered it a place where one can study in future more in detail and then make it candidate for the type area for the Kroltal boundary. Then here we have got the phosphorite mines. These are the mines in Maldevta village. It is about 3 kilometers from Maldevta or 17 kilometers from Dehradun. So here we can combine these two, Cambrian boundary and phosphorite mines. These mines are now abundant, but still one can see how mining operations takes place, particularly Himalayan region, where almost no underground mine exists. This is the only place where underground mines are present. And right now it is closed, but if some efforts is made by the geological people, then this mine can be open for the visitors and visitors can enjoy the mines at very convenient place. Then another most significant place is the Tal Valley. This Tal Valley is about 70 kilometers from Dehradun and it may take at least 1.5 hours to reach there from Dehradun. And it is across the Ganga river between Haridwar and Rishikesh. In this valley, variety of geological features are available. So right from the main boundary fault, then Amri thrust, we have got two fossiliferous localities here. One is Subatu and second is Kakara formation. Then we have got fold development which are associated with the tectonics. Of course, fold is a tectonic feature, but here fault band fold, that is a special type of fold variety which is formed over a faulted surface, and other types of fold features are available. Then we can also get here unconformity between Kakara and Subatu, a very good small bed of conglomerate with rounded pebbles are there. Then we have got here the beautiful landslide, textbook diagram of landslide. So this place is very, very significant. And here we can see also selenite variety of gypsum in Tal Valley and also burn zone. So variety of geological features, they are available here, except you can say that there is no igneous rock. Otherwise, it is a perfect region for a geological tour and it may take 1 day complete to visit this valley from Dehradun if one goes and then come back to Dehradun. Then Yamuna Valley. In Yamuna Valley, a big dam is coming up, which is known as the Lakwar Dam. And the Lakwar Dam is situated on a dolerite dike. So at this stage, one can see the construction stage. It is a construction stage where dam can be, how dam is constructed, how the rock foundation is made, and then significance of dolerite in particularly sedimentary environment where nearby rocks are the Chandpur phyllite and other poorly consolidated rocks. So fortunately, in between poor rocks, we have got a very strong dolerite dike, and on that foundation is made. So at present, till dam is constructed, this place is very good for geological tour site. And again, moving few kilometers in upstream direction, we find excellent place where we can see the Gosans capping and also the fault plane striations marking, fault plane striations and polished surface silicon sites. So three things we can move in upstream direction. One is the Gosans, excellent diagram of Gosans are there, photographs are shown last time, and then we have got there fault plane striations and also the polished surface silicon sites. So for BSc students and MSc student, this Yamuna Valley is very good place, and one can go Yamuna in this valley from Dehradun via Dakpathar or Vikasnagar, and before the dam site, we get Kroll thrust and main boundary thrust in a distance of 200 meters. So this is the only location where these two things are separate. Otherwise, in Dehradun Valley, basically we have got Kroll thrust, but we popularly called it main boundary thrust. So Kroll thrust and main boundary thrust are synonyms, but fact is that it was a Kroll thrust. And these two different thrusts we can see only in the Yamuna Valley and nowhere else in and around Dehradun. Then another interesting feature here, somewhere tunnels are coming up and power plants are there, underground power plant is there. So that was the first power plant which was built in 1974 something, and this was the a big cavity was made in the hill, and after that power station is constructed there. Then from there we can go to Chakrata. In between these two places, Yamuna Valley and Chakrata village, we have got the Kalsi. A place is called Kalsi, and Kalsi is famous for Asok Addict. Here we can see the sermons of Lord Buddha written on the stones. A very huge stone is there on which the sermons are engraved by the King Ashoka in his time. So that is only one very big stone is present there, and now it is well protected. So this is the very significant thing here, that about 2000 or 500 years ago there was flourishing civilization here, and if we move in downstream direction to Yamuna River, say about 10 kilometer or 12 kilometer, then we came to the Ponta Sahib. Ponta Sahib is a famous Sikh shrine where Guru Gobind Singh stayed for considerable period of time, and every year thousands of Sikhs visit there. So that is a very holy place. And once again from Ponta Sahib we can come to the Kalsi, and Kalsi we can go to the Chakrata. Chakrata is about 7,500 feet height. So it is a kind of hill station, but it is not that popular because the army cantonment is there, and some training institute of army is also there. But around Chakrata, we have got deep water sedimentary rock, which are called flysch, and they show excellent variety of all kinds of sediment structures. So one is nature of rock, that is the impure sandstone, flysch, plus sedimentary structures. If by some sedimentologists, if they are studied in detail, then this could be the at least ideal location in our country where we can see the flysch in detail, and we can make a type locality for the flysch, because I have not seen such abundance of sedimentary structure anywhere else as we have seen in the Chakrata formation, which is developed around the Chakrata, where there is no restriction to move around of army. Then last place is Bidhalna window. The Bidhalna window is about 20 kilometers from here. It is a tectonic window in which the Shimla slates are exposed in Nagthat and infracoral formations, but this is a place where it is difficult to visit. So from Sazdhara to Chakrata, these are the places where we can develop the geopark sites. They are both for tourists, general tourists, as well as geological persons, from student to researchers. Some are the international sites like main boundary fault, Himalayan frontal fault, Kroltal boundary. They are definitely for international audience to, as well as the beginning of geology students. Then Tal Valley is a very educational purpose. It has got a lot of educational values as a place where we can see so many structures. And Yamuna Valley has got engineering geological and economic geological importance. Chakrata formation is petrological importance. Tapkeshwar temple, Robbers Cave, Sazdhara, they have got the geomorphological importance. So these are the possible park sites in and around Dehradun, where one can cover in 2 or 3 days the entire area. If one goes to Chakrata formation, then add 1 or 2 days more. Because around Chakrata, there are many other things which we can be seen. Particularly one is Guru Shikhar, which is of 10,000 feet height. And from there, entire Himalayan hills can be seen. All snow-clad hills can be seen from one end to another end. And also 4 formations type area is also there on Guru Shikhar, on the way to Guru Shikhar, and then thrust and 2-3 thrusts are also there. So I will say that we must try to make Dehradun as one place where a lot of geological places can be visited by general public as well as the geology students, teachers, research scholars, and professionals for first-hand information about the Himalaya. So with this, I close my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benny sir. Very good. The only problem is that it is a very big itinerary which you have given,
Yeah.
and it will take number of days. And the second problem is that Chakrata is generally out of bound for the general tourist most of the time. So Chakrata, to put Chakrata in that circuit will be little dangerous. And I don't know why you have not put the Mussoorie in there.
There is
Mussoorie would have
nothing
been
geological.
instead of a Chakrata, if the Mussoorie would have been a better alternative with the waterfall and other things, and including the whole of the Crow succession and other things. So that would have been a much better one. Anyway, lot of things have to be corrected in your geological information, because,
Yeah.
for example, the Kroll Tal boundary is not a Precambrian boundary. It is Kroll Tal boundary, but it's not Precambrian boundary.
It is Precambrian boundary, sir.
No, it is wrong. What they have given wrong. Now it has been proved that it is not Precambrian boundary.
Sir,
It is,
to my information,
it is no longer called Precambrian. It is Kroll Tal boundary, but not Precambrian boundary.
But what about the Conodon fossils, sir, which we are getting
Oh,
from there?
yes, that is the reason, because there are 3 stages of Cambrian and missing from there. 3 stages of Cambrian are missing, and therefore it cannot be a boundary.
Okay, sir, I will find out.
It is an unconformity.
I will
It
find
is
out,
an
sir.
unconformity.
Hmm.
We will discuss it later.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think we can move on to the next speaker. Who is
Professor Ahluwalia.
Arun? Arun Ahluwalia. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, welcome, Arun.
It's Himalayan ecology, eco and geotourism. It's a blank check of Mother Nature, which we have not tapped, and we are chasing trillions, but we have perhaps more than many trillions here. And not only just India, but all the Himalayan ecology sharing nations. My message is that we have to work in India, but also go together with the neighbors so that we make it cooperative and an effort which will ultimately yield world peace and affluence in South Asia. In fact, I have just jumped out to Morni, but let friends away from north understand that Himalayas is spread also in Haryana, Punjab, and even I'll actually start from Panchkula, very close to Professor Bhatia's place. I don't want to just be lost in the beauty and the grandeur of the Himalayas. Sometimes very small things, very thin beds can be extremely informative and extremely exciting, and they can be indicating a big, very important geological event. The first thing, which in fact I don't have a good photograph, so I'm just talking about it before. It's on the way to Morni. At the Nada Bridge, going towards Morni, we have below the Hotel North Park. Now a hotel has come above that site. a very exciting volcanic ash horizon. It's mixed with the mud, but nevertheless, a volcanic ash horizon about 2.54 million years old. The ash blew up about 800 kilometers away in Dakhte Nawar and got embedded in the Shivalik, some Shivalik lake. It doesn't have a very big lateral extent, but it has a huge geological importance. And I would say, if we have to create a geopark right in Panchkula, this is one. And it must not be lost in the huge crowd of so many localities. So that's the one which just occurred to me, that why go to Morni? Why not Panchkula, which is just a walkable distance from Bhargav Sahab's and Bhatia Sahab's place. And now coming to one geopark which I declared a geopark, but let me honestly say, all these sites which I'm talking about, these are geosites of great geological excitement. Whether they'll be declared geoparks or not in the long run, well, time will decide, but let's enjoy the excitement. And this is a cave. It's called Sherla Cave. There's a leopard, a family of leopard lives in these caves. Limestones always have caves. Now, I'm sure Banerjee Sahab can surely imagine this storyline, but let me come very close. And you have, I'm still not closed up, but getting closer. And many different angles of slopes, nature has cut through it. In fact, it would be mighty impossible to cut otherwise. And nature has cut through these strombolitic blocks. And the age of these strombolitic horizons, roughly around 1,000 or 1,100 million years. This is a tectonic wedge caught up in the tertiaries, but nevertheless, a 1 hour journey from Panchkula. It's a good motorable road, and Morni has many establishments of Haryana tourism there, and Sherla is about 5 kilometers from the Morni, and it's a motorable road where buses go. In fact, I had about 3 decades back taken my family by bus to visit this locality, and we had stayed in that tourism guest house. So this is a very, very important site. You can see the columns, closely spaced vertical columns. Nature has done what geologists try to do, but nature does it better. You have laterally linked, and you have these vertically going columns, and lot you can see. 3 samples of these have been put in the Mother Earth open air gallery in the Government Museum Natural History. And those who cannot go to Morni can see it there. But nevertheless, Morni is the easiest accessible Haryana Himalayan locality, which should be a global excitement in the times to come. I thought best way to publish it is I put it on the my Facebook page, and told many friends abroad and in the country that this is my choice for a geopark on strombolites. You can see much closer and a little distant, and that's the view. This photo was clicked for me by Vibhuti or Kamal. I've taken them to this locality. So this is the scenario. You have abundant tourism facilities, abundant facilities to stay, easy to go, easy to return. Whole day you can picnic with the family and friends, and do geological research, and travel back into 1,000 million years. Yeah. Now jumping across to Himachal, I may not say that you have a airport at Bhuntar, about 10 kilometers before Kullu, and you have a motorable road. Now it's being made an expressway, certainly very sadly made, very badly made. They have buried the whole geology and route in a thick wall of concrete wherever they could. They have hardly spared any. But nevertheless, on the route is also the limestones of Shali and largely they are equivalent, but beautiful stromatolites there too. And what we see at Morni is perhaps the best exposure. You do see these before you reach Kulu. So that's one side, and this is another. But here, what I'm showing here, I've just picked up a distinct, important slide. This is the famous Tandi limestone, the Mesozoic. This is a condensed sequence. This is unlike the Spiti section, though a crow fly away from the Spiti, and this is an infolded sequence within the Rohtang gneissic complex, folded along with it. And in fact, it was a misnomer. It was called that crystallines have yielded the fossil, but McPowell and Conaghan, etc., they had in the early 70s described. So Tandi, and you're going down into that at the proper village Tandi, you have another very important, geologically important, and paleogeographically important location going from this downwards in the north east, Tandi. This is another possible focus for our future demarcation of the geopark. And we have already crossed Rohtang. Coming from Rohtang down, this is a huge excitement for all tourists. In fact, many don't cross Rohtang, but Rohtang downwards up to Batal, where we start having the Proterozoic sedimentary rocks. There is a stretch I'll show only in the 4th slide. There is a stretch which is a very important stretch, which from the time of First World War was the focus of mining for stibnite because of the strategic value. And this is the Bara Shigri gneissic complex. This also I've already put across on social media to the scientific community, because social media has lots of scientific communities there. That Bara Shigri complex in Chandra Valley is another important site for, and this stretch has got telltale signals of huge, massive flash floods. Such flash floods which have brought huge chunks, several meters, several cubic meters. Those are lying there with no way they could have come but for unprecedented flash flood. So this site with the biggest glaciers and a very unique mineralization and unique geomorphic features, this is another place which I suggest has, and on the way to Spiti anyway, whosoever is going, you have to cross a Jhula, a bridge, Jhula, you understand, a Jhula bridge to go to the Bara Shigri. And among the geologists, this site is a famous site full of excitement for the Himalayan geologists, especially Geological Survey of India, because the great duo, Padi Saab and S.V. Srikantia Saab, they staged a massive survival, having been declared dead and lost on All India Radio, which was the only communication channel those days. 8 o'clock news, Devakinandan Pandey and Melville Devala saying the Geologist Party or Geological Survey of India is lost, and they come out after 3 weeks and they later go back and bring all their packs and tents and everything. So that's the bravery of those geological warriors. This entire stretch from Rohtang to Bara Shigri Chota Dara is a huge stretch of great excitement, great geoscientific value, and also great grandeur and beauty, which should be the 3rd or 4th listed geopark in my mind. And this is, and you crossed, you can see the great veteran Dr. Om Narayan Bhargava. We were together, I think Banerjee Saab leke gaye the isme, yes, I think he took us there. He was the organizer. And that's coming to this gateway to Spiti Valley. Here you have a huge culture and all these samples, and this glacier is a very famous glacier for Indian Army. They located a plane which had crashed about 58 years back here, and they got the bodies of some soldiers whose sons were twice the age at which they died, and with the identity card they could identify. This is a site of great excitement and great emotional value for Indian Army, and also extremely important for geologists. And here we have these three views of the Kunjam. In fact, Kunjam itself is such a height. In fact, European peaks are not as high as this pass. They're bigger passes. As a geologist in Geological Survey of India, we had the opportunity to go with Sudarshan Kanwar and Dr. Karamchand Prasho and Sabyasachi Das Gupta. We had been to Taklingla, the Parangla, and of course Baralachala and Shinkula and all the passes. And Kunjam to Chandratal. This is another stretch which is doable in a day. And this is one picture encompasses the entire Paleozoic. You can see the famous Mut and the Silurian, and it is on the Cambrian. So this is another site which is of great tourist value. Fortunately, the road to this the lake got snapped a few kilometers away. You got to trek. We tracked from Baralacha downwards, but we can always go from Kunjam to Chandratal. This Kunjam Chandratal stretch is one which has full of geological excitement, grandeur, beauty, and Upper Spiti Valley as such. This Takche, Upper Spiti Valley, this place. In this Spiti Valley, unfortunately, because we are in a rush to call a geopark, we should not be overawed by the size. We should be able to classify and differentiate because it should be doable in a few days. This Upper Spiti Valley, geologists of Geological Survey of India spent 3 months to study it, but geologists from anywhere coming, ecologists from anywhere coming, and this is a place where snow leopard lives here. A man shares the ecology with snow leopard, and lots of European tourists come here for videographing the snow leopard in this site. I remember one snow leopard had driven away our mules from Taklingla to Takche, and we were stuck there. That was the day when Lord Mountbatten was blown up. This is one site alone where you have the story of 300 million years. किसी आम आदमी को बताइए कि 30 करोड़ साल का भूवैज्ञानिक इतिहास दबा है इन इतिहास के पन्नों में, तो उसकी आत्मा खुश हो जाती है, अरे मैंने क्या इतिहास पढ़ लिया, ये है इतिहास। वो छोटी मोटी किताबों का इतिहास जो है वो कहाँ का इतिहास, ये वाला रोमांच और ये रोमांच जो है विज्ञान का, भूविज्ञान का, ये अगर हम सरल भाषा में यहाँ के ग्रामीण को, लोथर वैली के सभी को हमने कराने की चेष्टा की है सभी ने। ये all this outreach and science, research and tourism have to go together. That's my, and coming to another side, 1,000-year-old monastery, Thabo. Thabo is famous in the Buddhists. Thabo is famous in the geologists for a very unique location. Thabo plant locality. This needs conservation and preservation. This is a site which should be the Thabo Plant Fossil Park. And the great Birbal Sahni, when there were no roads and nothing, traveled to this place in 1938. Way back in 1938, Birbal Sahni came here. I'll just give you one picture of the plant fossils. These can be called plants by even a nursery school kid. So a thing should be so telling that you name it or don't name it, the picture speaks for itself. And now coming back to the Manali Leh Road, we have the Suraj Tal, another beautiful, placid, tranquil lake, again on the Cambrian rocks. And going further from it, you could, this small lake is a halting place for many tourists going to Manali Leh or more plain. And this is another site which, as such, I would call it a geosite or a geopark. What name it finally gets doesn't matter. What matters is the excitement and the thrills it gives you. And going further, one great location, a huge location, whose moods in the day swing, whose configuration over every day changes. If you go in June, you can be sunk in the swamp of Stoker Lake. And if you go a little later, we went 3 years, Kotlia, myself, and the geologist from Free University, Germany. And we did dig into it for climate change. And the ZDF TV channel had funded one expedition, and that entire drilling was filmed by the German TV, and it was telecast on Prime TV. So geology and tourism sometimes funded. Geology was funded by tourism. Geology was funded by tourism. That's a very important thing to underline. धन कहाँ से आता है और धन कहाँ खर्चा हो जाता है. And Stoker Lake, Ladakh. So going, this is potassium chloride, not sodium chloride. And the villagers, without knowing the chemistry of it, knew ये वाला नमक खाने से blood pressure ठीक रहता है. So they were on their own. They had discovered the earthly knowledge is great knowledge. And Stoker Lake, then my last message is Himalaya sharing nations, creating geoparks across borders will ensure global peace and affluence. I bet one day one of us or our next generation or their next generation pursuing the cause of shared ecotourism and geotourism across Himalayan borders will get Nobel Peace Prize. Even if they don't get, the best prize would be this sort of joint collaboration would have ensured extinction of all these stupid wars and the terrorists, and a huge economic collaboration across these countries, like Europe does, or maybe even better, because Himalayan heritage gifted by God to us is the the best gift we have. Thank you, sir. I'm done.
Thank you, Varun. It was a very exhaustive talk, but I've got 2 points to make here. That Bhargav Saab's Spiti Valley program and this program can be joined together, and I think made into a two slips, that anybody who can join for all both, or one can join half, because a lot of things are in common.
सर ये सभी भार्गव साहब का ही सिखाया हुआ है. मैं तो उन्हीं का उनके चरणों.
नहीं मुझे पता. अरे मुझको क्यों बता रहे हो? मुझे पता है, पर सुनो. नहीं another thing what is needed here, you have not given the itinerary कि किस तरह से कब जाओगे, कहाँ रुकोगे और कितने दिन लगेंगे, कहाँ पर बैठोगे, कहाँ खाओगे, ये कुछ नहीं दिया. तुमने सबको डिस्क्राइब तो कर दिया है, पर ये नहीं बताया कि कहाँ रुकोगे, कहाँ रहोगे.
अपना दम है. भार्गव साहब जैसा धड़ल्ले वाला आदमी होगा तो उसी दिन जाएगा, काजा पहुंच जाएगा अगले दिन. और वैसे
अरे भाई आपको टूरिस्ट ले जाना है,
कम से कम लगेगा.
नहीं अरुण, यू हैव टू ब्रिंग द टूरिस्ट. वो कहाँ ठहरेंगे क्या नहीं, इसका प्रोग्राम देना. और लोगों ने दिया है ना, और लोगों ने यही कहा है कि भाई यहाँ पे रुकेंगे, यहाँ नहीं रुकेंगे, 1 दिन ही लगेगा, 2 दिन यहाँ लगेगा. वो डेट तो बताओ कितने. ये सारा का सारा जो तुमने दिखाया, इसको करने में तो 1 महीना लग जाएगा.
I economized on time. Will you give me?
नहीं, not economize कह रहा हूँ, मैंने you prepare it. मैं कह रहा हूँ, ये नहीं कह रहा हूँ कि तुम नहीं. You prepare it.
I do.
You prepare that itinerary.
Surely, sir. Surely, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Let's have some next talk. Who is there? Vadavan?
Good evening to all of you, and really nice presentations by all the predecessors. I will just make a few points, because in my presentation we have already shown how best we can show some of the geoheritage sites and officially declared geological monuments, in addition to the other ecotourism aspects like rural tourism, visit to the areas which normally people enjoy, like camel safari or just rolling down the golden sands. These are the general recreational aspects which the general tourist also enjoys. But most of the presentations that I have seen today, they focus on either geology scholars or geology students or those who are really interested in the geological aspects only. I think we'll need to mix and match. We need to add lot many more tourist attraction things to make it real people movement actually. So on this, I've been also thinking how best to do it. Because most of the field excursions, particularly in the desert area that have been organizing and have been party to it, we have been doing a guided tour wherein we have a gathering of experts or the participants who are interested in a particular branch of geology. But now the idea is that we need to make it more popular amongst the common people and create a lot more awareness so that they also learn. And the best part of any geopark is how to do the conservation. It is not merely to just show the sites and think that government should do things. No, I personally feel we should not expect government to be doing everything, because here we have to have such good management mechanism put in place wherein the stakeholders, they come forward and they take the responsibility of maintaining and conserving the geosites. Because if we keep encouraging a lot of tourists visiting these many sites, and then there is a possibility of vandalism or people taking away the fossils, which is very common thing in Jaisalmer. I have seen people purchasing these fossils from the local people. And this is a loss. This is a national loss actually. And we do not really know how much of it is already lost actually. So as rightly pointed out, say for example, the Iramati Dibalu, although the geological monuments is declared, but then we need not wait for the national act to come into force. People's movement is very important. Why Iramati Dibalu in Andhra Pradesh became a real success story? Because people's involvement was very much there. There were NGOs, there was INTAC, and there was a very strong lobby of retired IAS people. So educated public, they had come together to press for the preservation of that particular area. This is very good success story. Similar aspects I have seen. I have given two models wherein in Jodhpur, Mehrangarh Fort, which is housing two of the geological monuments, is actually protected by a trust which is managed by the erstwhile royal family. They are having a huge museum, and they developed the surrounding hillsides also as a rock garden. And of course, with a lot of technical guidance, now they are displaying many more sites which are of geology interest also. So they had been propagating the biodiversity aspects. They had created a number of plantations which actually grow in the dryland environment. And now with the guidance from the Jodhpur University people, and we have also interacted with them, now they are putting up the boards and the signages which is indicating the importance of the rock types, the volcanic rhyolites of nearly 700 million years age, and also, of course, the contact between the Malani igneous suet and the horizontally bedded Jodhpur sandstones. So now these are the things wherein we are able to draw attention of the tourists to these geodiversity aspects. Other model is which is being protected or preserved entirely by the State Forest Department, that is in Jaisalmer, that is Akal Fossilwood Park, because that area is actually falling within the Desert National Park, so they are bound to protect it. Although the government departments are not oriented to do this in a commercial way or in a way which is really attractive to the people visiting there, and it is not being managed to the extent that we would like it to be managed. So therefore, I had suggested about a 4 to 5 days package starting from Jodhpur, spending 2 nights there and 2 days visiting the area around, visiting the geological sites around, also seeing one of the youngest forts, that is Umaid Palace. which is also housing a museum there. And the present day Maharaja is also living in part of that 5-star hotel facility there. Then we are moving to Jaisalmer. En route, we have seen number of sites which need to be carefully protected, preserved, and labeled. And also in Jaisalmer, we would need 2 nights halt. So total 5 days package. And this has been conducted by myself and my colleagues from GSI. So I'm just highlighting 2 major aspects, sir, that geo-heritage has to be linked with the conservation aspects, because through geotourism, let us not endanger the sites which need to be protected and propagated in a good package. So the good package has to be developed, and for that we need to have real good stakeholders coming forward so that the proper guided tours are made available. The way it is done in a private sector, we need to really encourage such tour operators. In fact, I have been giving a couple of talks to the Forest Department people here. Particularly, it was so exciting to give a talk to the guides, tourist guides. Now, tourist guides are the ideal people who, once they are convinced and they are educated, they can also convey and educate the general tourists that they are conducting these tours and all that. These package tours are nowadays booked online. So itinerary is already explained to them. And this is going to be a real good effort if these people are also involved. And if some of us who are really enterprising can get into this kind of, I would say it's a kind of a business. Yes, it is a business, but then it is a business to really popularize the geoscience and the conservation aspects of the geoheritage sites. So these are the small points I just wanted to highlight again. And we are really happy, thanks to Ravi and his team, that we are celebrating this 1 full year of our Geoparks Day or Geoheritage Day. In fact, there has been an international effort to get one Geodiversity Day, International Geodiversity Day, also declared by the UNESCO. So Professor Shankar was on this, and he's still making efforts to get many of the positive responses on this. So with this, I think I would just close, and if there are any points to be discussed further, I'll be very happy to do it. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
I think it was a very precise and very illuminating talk, and you have given a good direction the way it should go. It is no, you are right that other people gave a lot of idea about the geology and other thing only exclusively for the geologists. But if you do it for the tourist also, and the tourist guide, that is a very good idea, because tourist guide, if they are trained and they were given idea that look, these are the geological features which you explain when you go, so then things will become much better. Yeah,
and the conservation aspects.
Conservation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Madam Sudha Waddadi is the next one, sir.
Yeah, so I will not repeat what we had already covered. There were some comments in the group that Mahabaleshwar section about the escarpment in Mahabaleshwar and Elephanta caves and stuff. Yes, we have not covered the entire Deccan Volcanic Province, obviously. And as you can see, this is the Google map, Google Earth actually, and this entire area is covered by Deccan Volcanic Province. So what we had shown was only one small part of the Deccan Volcanic Province, and that naturally that is why so in Deccan Volcanic Province actually you can have many other geoparks also other than this, and this was only one such a geopark. So earlier our idea of park and the extent was not very clear. Post our webinar on 26th, we had a discussion with Dr. Reddy also, and in fact we have changed the name to Pune Ahmednagar Deccan Geopark, because in Deccan you can have multiple geoparks like Lonar, Aurangabad, Mumbai area, then Nashik. So in Mumbai you have your Elephanta Kaneri, etc. And in Satara Raigad area you have your Mahabaleshwar, Panchgiri, and So you can have multiple geoparks in Deccan Volcanic Province itself. Okay? So we would like to rename it as a Pune Abhanagar Deccan Geopark. Right? Yeah. So with that, so what we have done is, now that we know that the extent of geopark cannot be not restricted to a limited area, and we can have, instead of 2 days, 3 days, and 4 days, we would like to extend the same area a little more to the west and to the east to cover a couple of more geosites, which are all within the same continuous lithological unit also. Okay, so I will just brief you about those. One of the first places is Junnar. This Junnar is to the west of the earlier.
Speak little loudly. We can't hear you.
Okay, the Junnar is a little to the west of the earlier proposed area. So we have earlier, as per the proposal, we had a night halt at the agri farm. So we can still halt at the agri farm, this Parashar agri farm, and day 2 we can go to the Junnar area, and then come back, stay here, complete this route. From here we can go to from this Dokeshwar, we can go to the east, one side, and then turn clear to the west, which I was suggesting is the Junnar and adjacent. It's a very interesting and fascinating area where you have many interesting features. Junnar is a small town. Around Junnar, the Junnar is completely all around Junnar are hills, and within these hills there are a number of caves. According to the Archaeological Survey of India, there are nearly 40 caves. I mean, this is one of the area which has the largest number of caves. One of the areas in the country where the largest number of caves. So it is really important one in that way. And within this, though we are not able to cover all the caves, these three important places we will see. One is this Shivneri Fort, where you have a fort and cave, and this is the Lenyadri or the Ganesha caves, and this is the Nane Ghat. Okay, the Shivneri cave is very important because this is the birthplace of Shivaji, the Maratha king Shivaji. This with the fort, and within the fort you have the compound Pahoi flows exposed, and within the fort you have on the pathway you have the giant plagioclase basalts, which are actually marker horizons, which are used to separate the two stratigraphic units, that is the Ratangad formation and the Ryan formation. So geologically is the entire group of flows. So there are nearly 40 caves with 30 they're all in the line, and they're all facing south. Now, out of this 30 caves, most of them are actually monasteries or housing, which are those cells which are used for housing of the for the monks. The two of them are viharas, and these viharas are very similar to the ones which are seen in Ajanta, Karla, and other areas. Just see the cells there, houses, and this is the one which is one of the Ashtavinayaka temples of Maharashtra, and this is protected by presently this is protected by the Archaeological Survey of India as a historical site. Now this is the another famous and interesting place which is called the Nane Ghat, and this is actually a mountain pass, a trail which is connecting the coastal area, that is the ports in the coast in the west, to that in the to the Desh area or the plateau, which I had already spoken of earlier in the last presentation. So earlier, this was the only pass which is connecting the ports to the Desh, that is the coastal area or Konkan area to the Desh area. And in the Desh area, you had a lot of commercial areas like your Nashik, Ter, Paitan. In fact, Paitan was one of the capitals at that time, and this actually is a kind of a trade route. And interestingly, many caves are also seen in this area, which again were used for actually housing also. In this Nane Ghat area, there are two large caves at the entrance point, and there Archaeological Survey of India, they have also been able to locate some small elevated areas which are used for seating. So, and there are inscriptions on both the sides of the caves. Those are believed to be one of the oldest inscriptions of, or rather the oldest inscriptions lipi of Sanskrit. So that way this area is actually geologically, anthropologically, archaeologically and historically interesting. Then we go to the, like, yeah, then we from here we go to the eastern part. As I said, this dinner area is this area where we have, I mean, which is cut off here, and further this side, I could not. There was no time enough to redo this map. And further east from Dokeshwar, you come across these. Sorry. Yeah. So this is the area that this is along the Ahmednagar Aurangabad road of Ahmednagar Aurangabad road. You get in. I mean, it's very close from the road. There's a diversion from a place called Pandriche Pool, and this is the lava channel or lava channel in Gunjale. That's the entire area from Gunjale to Vambori. This is connected. This is the end. This lava channel moves from, this is the expression of the lava channel. What you can see, the sign is lava channel, and if you can locate it, this is the, this is positive expression. What you see here, that is the lava channel, and this is the hill where we'll be moving. This will be there. We can, and the Ghat section, you can see again this exposed. Right. So as you can see, actually here, lot of excavation has taken. All this material which is filling the lava channel has been removed completely. It was not so 30 years back when we were mapping here, and this has been removed completely, and now they're using it for road as a road metal. And the margins they have used completely, part of it has been removed, and those they are used for making buildings, presently buildings, that too actually a sewage tank. So which is very, very, very sad. Yeah, and this is the margin of the lava channel at the Ghat section here. The screen is not seen, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, at the margins you can see this, Kaltufa. This is a waterfall which is actually. So where do we start?
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sudha has already spoken about essentially that what we covered in the last presentation was only a small part of the Deccan Trap. Deccan Trap is huge, all of you know that. But what we've done for this is just added a couple of spots based on discussions with Dr. Reddy. And they essentially fall in the same kind of geographical area, but you have to go a little west and you have to go to a little east. So this essentially, if you go west of the route that we had shown earlier, there is a place called Junnar, which is a small town, and it is famous for this place called Shivneri Fort is very famous because it's the birthplace of Shivaji Maharaj, the Maratha warrior and the king, very famous. We have the Leniadri caves also there. So I explained about it, so I'm not getting into the details. The Shivneri Fort, especially as you climb towards the fort, you come across one floor of GPB with the formational context. So that's famous for that. Other interesting thing is Junnar was actually there was a local village report about some rocks which are musical, and we and a small volunteer team, we actually went and checked it out, and we have some singing rocks there. I don't know how long they will be there because these are boulders and they actually make you can actually play music on them. So that's also very interesting. Though Junnar is a little off the main highway.
Yeah. So we stopped at this, I think, right? Yeah. So this explained about Nane Ghat also. This is the Nane Ghat, which is actually the mountain pass. I think I have already explained, but only the picture was not seen. And because this was a trade route, and there was, as I was mentioning earlier, the Archaeological Survey of India have found that there is a cave here, and in the cave there is a seating places, and probably this was a place where it was where they used to collect toll for this trade route, and there are many caves in the adjacent area. Probably that also reason for people to stay back on their way to Paitan, which was the capital at that time, right? Yeah. So as I mentioned, that further east, when you go from Takli Dokeshwar, which we had seen in the last trip, we have very close to, little off the Ahmednagar road, Aurangabad road. You have this Pandricha Pool, from where you take a turn to the onto this Bamburi road, and this Gunjale and Bamburi, there's a lava channel which connects Gunjale and Bamburi. This is if you can see, this is the sinus channel. What you see here is the Gunjale lava channel at Gunjale, and you can see this something which is standing out a little bit, a slight positive expression here. That is the expression of the lava channel, which you can see, and further takes a turn and then goes on to, along this ghat section. So at Bamburi, at this ghat section here, you have this waterfall Tufa. There's a small river which is flowing up from upstream, and this carries a lot of calcium carbonate. Why? Because there is a thick horizon of GPB here, marker horizon, which again is within the separating the two formations, that is the upper Ratangad formation and the Indrayani formation. And this is one of the many people who have visited number of many other Kaltufa sites in Maharashtra, including Dr. Kale. They have mentioned that this is one of the best sites where you have various morphologies. Mostly it is biogenic. You can see a full mat of moss, and you can see the different morphologies like porous. At places it is actually forming botryoids, and you can see thin filaments like straw, like a straw, and so many various morphologies. It's very interesting. It has not been dated, and not much studies has been taken up here. So this is one thing which we wanted to mention, that these lava channel fill material and the margins, they have been completely excavated. This was not the situation 30 years ago. So this needs immediate protection.
And what is sad is that very close to this, using material from this channel, they're actually building a sewage treatment plant.
Yeah.
Very, very close to this.
Yes. So yeah, more than so. By taking an additional 1 day, you can cover these many sites. Now, what is why we have chosen, there are many, like as I mentioned earlier, there are in Deccan Volcanic Province you can have multiple geoparks, but we chose Pune Ahmednagar area for a particular reason. This entire area, all the various features what we have seen are, which we have seen earlier and today, are all within the Upper Ratangad formation. One thing. Secondly, there are a number of lava channels in this area, and this is very interesting because there are a number of rock cut caves also. So in all probabilities, the early man used the existing openings in the Pahoi flows to sculpt their the various caves, dwellings or viharas to suit their purpose. Another interesting thing is that even during the historical time, the people were aware of this reddened indurated basalt, and they were using them as dimension stones. This is the famous Krishneshwar temple, which is one of the Jyotirlingas. Again, and this is a tomb of Malik Akbar, Ambar, which is in Kuldabad, that is a little north of Paitan, which was the capital during earlier days. And this is a church which is seen on the Ahmednagar Aurangabad road, very close to this Gunjale lava channel, not very far. And this is also this red looking material which are used are all actually basalts which are from the margins of the lava channel. So we that one of the reasons why this area itself we have chosen, because in this area you find that there is a history of human settlement right from Junnar to Paitan and Junnar to Aurangabad. So we have taken only up to Ahmednagar area, and you can have multiple other we add like as Vadhavan sir said, if we add 1 or 2 more days, we can even cover Aurangabad within this tour. Yes. Yeah, and so before I close, I would like to mention that this within the entire Deccan Trap area, you can have again repeat that you can have multiple geoparks, and there the unifying lithology there will be all basalt. Now in this Pune Ahmednagar Deccan Geopark, the entire area is unifying lithology is actually Upper Ratangad formation or Ratangad Formation. So it becomes ideal as a geopark with geomorphologically interesting areas, physical volcanologically interesting areas, archaeologically, anthropologically, and historically. So, before I would like to conclude saying that Deccan basalts can be considered as one of the contenders for national rock, as a national rock. Thank you for giving the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Sudha Madam. It's a wonderful presentation. So,
With a lot of glitches.
yeah, a lot of places, and really, yours is the first geotourism of Deccan tribes. You have developed these areas keeping geotourism in mind. So, no doubt that this is one of the best presentation and the first of its kind. So, thank you very much. You kindly sum it up, sir. Probably that will be the better part. Kindly sum it up, sir. We tried our best.
Yeah, I think we sum it up. We can sum up now. I think they were very good presentations, and the suggestions which Dr. Vadhavan gave was also very good, because he said that it should not be only pure geology, but cultural aspects should be clearly seen. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear much of the Sudha Vadadi's talk because of some problem here, and sound was not clear. But anyway, I could see the photograph scene. It must be a very good program. Similarly, our Bhargav Sahib and Arun Ahluwalia's field trip can be combined and maybe made into two groups. Thirdly, then Ritesh Arya's one is already very good, because he is already preparing a museum there. So all these things that make that things are going on in a proper way, and what we have now to do is that consolidate these things and make some videos which you can project, instead of this type of webinars where you have too much of glitches. Sometimes people are not able to talk, sometimes people are not able to think. Let there be some videos prepared by the authors, by themselves, and then you can project it. They make it beforehand, and then it can be put online. That is my suggestion. I don't know technically how feasible it is, but this is my suggestion. That instead of a live talk, I find that would be better. So let's be the 1 year of our geoheritage effort. Our effort for preserving the geoheritage, we have completed 1 year, and we should go ahead. But there are lots of things still yet to be done, and even some of the geology which have been presented will need to be revised, because there are some old concepts are there which will be revised before it is being finalized. So overall, it is a very good progress, and especially thank you very much, Ravi, for your effort and all that what you have done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. From the technical team side, Dr. Surendranath, Mr. Ramamurthy, Nageshwaran, and myself. It is a pleasure, and most of the time, if you see, we have switched our ways to actually recording videos rather than doing it live. Because today's webinar is almost a concluding webinar for 1 year, we have taken this as live. Yeah. But you will see that we'll make it very presentable. Thank you very much, sir, for conducting.
Thank you, bro. Very good effort. That's very, very nice effort you have.
Thank you very much, sir, and bye-bye.
Okay, bye.